The car is no threat. Niall is sitting in the car. There is no apparent weapon. Nevertheless, the police officer decides to shoot, warns him that he may be killed, and he then actually does it. He shoots and kills him.
You've watched the violence and the rioting over the last 5 days. What have you made of the police response?
Well, the police response has been quite substantial in terms of numbers, because we have like 40,000 people, 40,000 agents on the field. Instructions have been given by the President and the Minister of Interior not to use lethal weapons. So there have been an awful lot of looting, destructions, but the police did not want to add one more death to the death of Niall, of course. So it's a strong response with a lot of arrests, several thousand arrests, but without shooting guns.
What have you made of the version of events from one of the passengers inside the car when Niall was shot, saying, well, we heard on the video, didn't we, police threatening to shoot him. The passenger in the car claims that he was hit round the head with their gun butts several times. And it was actually that forced Niall to take his foot off the brake and made the car move forward. What do you make of that whole event and how police dealt with it?
Well, there is now a history of police violence during traffic stops. There's been a piece of legislation in 2017, and this legislation has changed the right to use firearms for the police and has authorized police to shoot even in the absence of an imminent threat if the police officer believes that there may be a threat in the future. And this is the legal background of what has happened. The car is no threat. Niall is sitting in the car. There is no apparent weapon. Nevertheless, the police officer decides to shoot, warns him that he may be killed, and he then actually does it. He shoots and kills him.
We heard from our correspondent in Paris, Adam Sage, yesterday when we were talking about this, and he was saying he'd spoken to Black Africans, he'd spoken to Algerians in Paris, and they spoke about the frequency with which they were stopped by police, much more so than him as a white Frenchman. They were stopped from maybe taking a rucksack into a supermarket, having to leave it by a door, whereas a white Frenchman wouldn't have to do that. How much does race play a part in police tactics in France?
Police discrimination in France is really very bad. We have now evidence. We have dozens of surveys carried out since 2006. So in the last, I would say, 15 to 20 years, we have sociologists, psychologists, the defender of rights, a kind of French ombudsman, the European Fundamental Rights Agencies, all these entities have carried out independent research. All have found evidence that there is police discrimination, and it's happening in all French cities, Lyon, Paris, Strasbourg, Marseille. So there is no doubt that discrimination is widespread.
And yet we heard in that clip from Adam Sage earlier on that this public collection online for both the family of Niall, who was shot, that's raised €60,000. But the collection for the police officer has raised €300,000, which would suggest that public support is on the side of the police.
Or it would suggest that public support comes from the people with money, and that people without money, including the minority groups, have less money, and therefore they are less inclined to give money, just perhaps because they can't.
Some people are suggesting that Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, has lost control. How serious is this when you look at it from a policing perspective?
Emmanuel Macron is at the moment in a difficult position. He has tried, he has embraced a moderate stance on what has happened. He has had very harsh word towards the police officer, which is not common in France. He says this is inexcusable, and he has also had very harsh word towards the looters and the rioters. So he is in a very fragile position, and politically, on top of that, He doesn't have a majority in the parliament. So whatever he wants to do, he needs to find an ally. And who is going to be the Macron's ally? What kind of alliance can he build if he wants to change anything? That's a big problem for Emmanuel Macron.
Thank you so much for watching. You get extra points for making it all the way to the end of the video.
And if you want to see more from me, Chloe and Callum, you can join us every Friday to Sunday on Times Radio from 6 a.m.